Hello, I'm your host, Leonard Duncan. Welcome to a new episode of ATV-TALK and Motorsports Podcast. Please join us every Tuesday at 5 p.m. Pacific Standard Time. We bring you interviews with industry professionals, live events, live news about the motorsports industry in every episode. Enjoy the show. Whether we are out riding with our friends and family or racing in extreme environments, we all need good tires. That's why I recommend GBC Power Sports Tires, a division of Greenball Corp. Their products, which include XC Master, Mini Master, and Groundbuster 3, are what leading professionals in the ATV-UTV industry are using. You can get your tires at greenballtires.com or find them on Instagram as GBC Tires for further inquiries. Are you looking for the best suspension technology for your sport ATV? Look no further than Elka Suspension, the industry leader in sport ATV suspension technology. With championship wins in prestigious events such as the Dakar Rally, SCORE, Best in the Desert, ATV MX, Cross Country, and Works, Elka Suspension has established itself as the go-to choice for athletes and enthusiasts alike. But they don't just stop at ATVs. They're constantly expanding into new markets, including UTVs, trucks, SUVs, pit bikes, snowmobiles, and more. Their commitment to innovation and quality means they're always looking to improve and adapt so you can enjoy a smooth ride wherever you go. Want to learn more about what Elka Suspension can do for you? Visit their website at elkasuspension.com or give them a call at 450-655-4855. They will always be happy to answer your questions and help you find the perfect suspension solution for your needs. Welcome to DBR Racing Products, the leader in 3D modeling and innovations. Since 2015, they have been revolutionizing the industry, starting with their groundbreaking YFZ 450R battery boxes. But they didn't stop there. They have continued to push the boundaries, constantly improving their design with each new version. In 2018, they introduced the game-changing Vortex EXO cage, specifically designed to securely hold the Vortex ECU in a safe and sturdy location. This breakthrough innovation ensures your ECU stays protected even in the toughest racing conditions. At DBR, they understand that every detail matters. That's why they also offer an array of essential products to enhance your racing experience. Their spark plug hold downs keep your engine firing at peak performance, while their LTR breather boxes ensure optimal ventilation for your machine. Their LT250 engine skid plates are a must-have for those seeking unmatched protection. Engineered to shield your engine from impacts and rough terrain, they provide the ultimate defense for your ATV. But that's not all. They've developed ProPeg mounts that allow you to use TRX 450R Nerf bars, giving you greater control and maneuverability on the track. To explore their full range of innovative products and learn more about DBR Racing, visit their website at www.dbratv.com. You can also reach them directly at 507-828-1233. Their knowledgeable team is ready to assist you with any questions or inquiries. DBR Racing Products, where innovation meets performance. Unleash the power within you. Shane Hitt, welcome to ATV Talk. How are you, brother?
I'm good. How you doing, Lenny?
I'm great. Hey, thanks for coming back on the show, man. Before we started, you said you were at the race shop. Were you working on the race car?
Yeah, I mean, we just finished race season, so I mean, it's just like when you finish racing ATVs for the year, we just tear everything apart. Back like in the old days when we had, aftermarket frames and stuff, we just blow everything apart, repowder coat the frames and put new bodies back on them, and we put new rear ends and stuff in. Also back then, you just repowder coated the swing arm, welded up the cracks, and put new shocks on or whatever. But I mean, it's the same thing. It's just a little bit more parts, bigger parts.
Right, right. And do you spend a lot of that time when you're doing it upgrading to new things? Because it's dirt track, right? It's roundy round dirt track, isn't it?
Yeah, yeah, and really, I wouldn't say like we change a whole lot at this point, because we do it all year long. I mean, anytime there's a new shock or a new adjustment or a different A arm or something, then we change that stuff throughout the summer. And most of our stuff really, I mean, we run Rocket chassis, which are built right up the road here in Chinston, West Virginia, and we haven't changed chassis for quite a few years. I mean, we've made a couple different mounts or something to move the shock in or out, or and they've had some different right front stuff, different A arms, upper and lower, and spindles and stuff. But for the most part, the main frame has stayed the same. And so it's just all shock adjustments, and shocks. Well, shocks they're just never ending.
Do you do the shocks on the race car similar to how you set up your TT bikes? I know that it's different, being that you're working with a car that's probably not a straight axle, or well, it is a straight axle, but it doesn't work the same way that an ATV does.
Well, I mean, the stuff is it's the same, but it's different.
Right.
We have compression and rebound, and obviously we change springs, and we play with a lot with spring rubbers. And we have little pucks and stuff that go in the shocks that we can just pull out and change the load numbers and stuff. But it's gotten real technical. I mean, we have shock dynos. We have what's called spring smashers. We'll scale our cars generally at the beginning of the year and set our percentages. And basically, we're setting our left side percentage and our rear percentage. And then from then on, we pretty much do everything with our shocks. Once the shocks every week, we take them off and we put them on a spring smasher, and we play all night long. Even at the races, we're messing with a spring smasher and changing load numbers and stuff. Everyone pretty much now carries that stuff with them in their trailers, so they can do that stuff on the fly at the racetrack. And then the spring smasher, you either write it down or it's got a database in it where it remembers everything, and you just put down what you've done. And if you're good, you kind of know what to go back to. But it's really technical, and it's crazy what a 16th or an 1/8 of an inch, puck will do to your load numbers, as far as your 3-inch, your 4-inch number. Cause we check them, at ride height, and then we'll go 1 inch, 2 inch, 3 inch, compressed, and check our numbers. And we can change them at ride height, or we can change a 3-inch number, or we can change just a 4-inch number, depending on where we got on a single rake spring or a stack spring, depending on bump stops and pucks and stuff. It's never ending. It's crazy. I mean, how shocks and springs are. I mean, as soon as you think you got something figured out, somebody else changes something, so you got to start all over again. So
just like when you were racing ATVs, how often when you roll it out of the trailer is that the setup you run in the main event?
Never.
I knew you were going to say that.
Yeah. I mean, I would roll out, and it's crazy. I'll watch, I race with my son Logan, and sometimes if he's in the first heat race and I'm in the third heat race, we'll watch his car on the racetrack, and then I'll say, what's his times? Because it's all done on your cell phone now. It's through a race monitor, or you can just go on your cell phones and you can see lap times, and I'll say, what's his lap times if we run that track a lot? And I mean, how far has he fallen off? I'll say, well, take a turn out of this, my car will still be sitting on a lift, and they'll jump underneath, and they'll take a turn out of the right front or turn out of the right rear, or if if he looks like he's tight, we'll put a turn in, and then we'll let down, we'll roll up to the thing. But we do that between qualifying and heat races. I mean, and my TT bike was the same way. I mean, we'd roll up to the starting line or whatever at Ashtabula or something. I said, whew, this track's locked down. I mean, it's taking rubber. I mean, I need to loosen up. And Curtis would pick up on the bike, and I'd start adjusting shocks. So, I mean, we did it on the fly.
That is awesome. How much do you guys do with your tires? Do you guys have the same different compounded treads that they did for the ATVs?
No, and we don't even run the same tires. We're on Hoosiers now. Back then, we were on American Racers, and Hoosier kind of bought up everything in dirt car racing, and they would go to tracks and pay them money or whatever to just be a Hoosier only. So a lot of the tracks that we go to, you can't run nothing but Hoosiers. So if I showed up with an American Racer back in the day, it was a McCreary, you couldn't run them anyway because they weren't allowed. So everybody's pretty much on Hoosiers, and I think up till last year there was about 36 different compounds. Yeah, it was a headache, and then they decided that that had just got out of control, and with COVID, they couldn't get materials to keep up with everything, so they were just making a few compounds anyway. So they shortened it up and said, we're just going to make 4 compounds, and we're going to make it real easy. There's going to be a 1, a 2, a 3, and a 4. 1 being the softest, 4 being the hardest. So that's what they did this year, which was good. But I mean, still, and really, originally they said it wasn't going to be no grooving or siping, and I thought, well, that's good in a way because it takes away a lot of work. But there's an advantage if you know how to groove and sipe. So they still let us groove and sipe. So I hate it because it's a lot of work, but I mean, there's an advantage there if you really know what you're doing.
Okay, not that any of the car guys are going to watch this, but you and I had a conversation about putting chemicals on the tire and bagging them, things like that. Do they check that kind of stuff now, or are they up on it all so you couldn't get away with it?
Yeah, they're pretty strict on that. I mean, locally you could juice your tires. You could do whatever you wanted to them pretty much, as long as you got the right tire on. They do check, coming through tech, they'll walk and they'll make sure it's a 1, 2, 3, or 4, or whatever the track is running that day. They will check that and make sure it's the right tire, because a lot of the tracks will want to let you run a 2 or a 3 or certain numbers. So they check those. But we're allowed to groove and sipe, and we buff, and then we wrap everything. But if you're going to put any kind of chemicals and stuff in it, anything you usually paying $4,000 or $5,000, or some of our races pay 10, 20. I've run a couple races this year that pay $30,000, $40,000, $50,000, and there wasn't none this year. Last year there was one that paid $1 million, but this year there wasn't any that paid $1 million, but there will be probably next year. So there's a lot of money. They're going to check. They're going to check your tires. They'll just take a hot knife and they'll cut a chunk out of it, and they send it away to a chemical lab, and you won't get it back for probably a week or 2. And when it comes back, they'll check in. They'll let you know. I mean, whether it's been altered or not. And they used to have a sniffer where they could do it at the track, and it was just like a handheld machine with a little wand on it, and it would run. They just could run around the tire, and that thing was so good that it would pick you up. And we went to Florida to run at East Bay down in Tampa, Florida one year. It was about 80 some cars, I think, and they were split up in groups of 20, and I was in the 4th group, I think. The first group, like, I don't know, 16 out of the first 20 were, when they checked it with what they called a sniffer, when they checked it with it, failed. Out of the first 20, there was like 17 of them failed, because it was so good that if you had ever even had that wheel on a tire that had been soft, even if that tire hadn't, if you'd had it in that wheel, it would pick it up off the wheel.
Wow.
So yeah, it was really, really good. And I don't know how come they're not using it anymore, but they haven't been using it. And I don't know if maybe they somewhere run into a problem, someone run over a chemical or something in the pits and got disqualified, and it really was, and it maybe wasn't. But yeah, and by the time they got to my group, the 4th group, we all passed. I mean, that's how quick that stuff traveled through the pits. There are 20 guys are rolling up for qualifying, and everybody's come back. Those guys are illegal. That guy's illegal. Well, they're checking tires. Well, we better change these tires out real quick then. And so, yeah, it's like any kind of racing, man. You got to have a little bit of rules, and someone's always going to try to bend them.
So, are you as creative today as you were back when you were racing ATVs?
Yeah, I would say so. Yeah, I mean, we'll play in the gray area. So, I mean, if there's a rule that we think we can get away with, it's a little bit of advantage, like a deck height or the droop rule or something. I mean, we've rolled into tracks before, and they've said, hey, your deck height is like supposed to be 40 inches, and yours is like 44. We're like, yeah, kind of figured it was off a little bit. We'll lower it, but they usually check you through tech, so we'll roll through tech and see what happens. And then some tracks aren't crazy about it. And then it also depends on too how many people are bending the rule. I mean, we were at a track at Ohio Valley this year, and I wasn't racing. Logan was, my son, and he qualified and he rolled across the scales. The scales was in the infield. As he rolls across the scales, they check his tires and stuff. And I seen him check his deck height. I'm like, oh God, this ain't good. About 2 weeks before, we got disqualified for an illegal tire. So we hadn't been back for a while. So now we're rolling across, and I see him measuring the deck height, and I thought, man, now we're done for deck height because I know it was too high. But the guy gave him thumbs up and waved him on in. He come around, pull back in the pits. I said, they say your deck height was good? He said, yeah, it was good. And I'm like, well, I'll lower it a little bit, but I know it's not good. We're about 3 inches high on deck height, but obviously there was some other cars that rolled through too that was too high, and they didn't say anything. So we just lowered it down and ran it. But yeah, I mean, if you can, it's like anything. It's there. You're going to try to get it.
So did you know that the tire was bad when you went through?
We didn't know the tire was bad 2 weeks before because we'd run there 3 weeks in a row. And like, who's to come up with this new tire? This new tires was 1, 2s, 3s, and 4s. And because those were all new this year, they gave us a burn off period to run last year's tires. So like us, we're sitting on 60, 70, 80 tires from last year. What do you do with them? You just throw them away? But so what they said is they'll give you a month burn off period. So we had been running there, and they told us, for the first month, we're going to allow you to run all your old tires. So that's what we were doing. We were just running an old tire, which the old tires were better than the new tires. So we had some, and we were using them. And they said that we will tell you at the driver's meeting when we change. And I went and asked them when we went through tech. I said, when you guys change the tires? He says, I'm not sure. He said the burn off period was supposed to be last week, but because we had 2 or 3 rainouts, he said they extended it. He said, so I don't know when it is. He says, but they'll announce it at the driver's meeting. It ain't no big deal. So we went to the driver's meeting. No one said a word. And we ran it. We actually qualified on it. And they drove through qualifying. And he qualified like second or third out of, I don't know, 20 cars. And then he went out and got second in his heat race. And then when he rolled across the scales in the heat race, they disqualified him in the heat race. And he come in and he said, we're disqualified for a tire. And I'm like, no one said anything. So we went and argued with them about it. And they're like, yeah, we changed it this week. So it was what it was. And they said, you guys can start last and run those tires, and we'll still pay you for wherever you finish. And I said, nah, we're loading up. We went home, and then we come back again a couple 3 weeks later and had on the right tires. And we was at the driver's meeting, and someone asked that question, when can we still run last year's tires? And the guy at the driver's meeting is like, I don't know what the rule on that is. I'm like, you got to be kidding. We got disqualified 2 or 3 weeks ago for it, and you still don't know the rule. And so, but it's just how it is, I mean, this is
in the old days, you would have piped up and made a stink out of it.
Well, I mean, we were 2 or 3 hours from home, and it was a Friday night, and it was already late. It was already 10:30, 11 o'clock, and we raced the next day. And I would have, on a normal night, if it had been a Saturday night, I said, we'll line up in the back and start, and we'll run. But I said, we're going to start 20th. We're going to end up probably getting in a wreck and getting tore up, getting home at 3 or 4 in the morning. I'm going to have to get up and work all day tomorrow fixing this car to run again tomorrow night. I said, nah, let's just go, But yeah, I mean, if it wasn't for the fact that we had raced the next day, we would have stayed and raced and argued and fought about it. But so whatever, let's just go. So
so you never had to watch your son race an ATV?
No. Well, I mean, he did, like 4 years old. He actually raced a little DRR 50. He raced it at the TTs and a couple of the motocrosses. He was 4 or 5. He won the championship on it 1 or 2 years when he was 4 or 5 years old. So, and then that's about the time I quit and went to cars and started working for KTM, for Timmy Farr and KTM, and started doing that stuff. So I'll be honest with you. I love the ATV stuff, always have. And, but I mean, it made me nervous to watch him, and it makes me nervous to watch him in a car, but to stand there and watch him on an ATV, I'm like, I know how bad it hurts, and I know how bad you can get hurt when you fall off that thing. So I'm like, maybe we just do something a little safer than this,
How does Mama feel about that?
I think she was fine. I mean, obviously we all like the ATV stuff because that's what I've always done. But yeah, I mean, it's definitely safer, and Logan probably could have been pretty good, I mean, on a four wheeler. I mean, he's super, super good in his car. So, but it was just, and I was tired of traveling, and, I'd raced a long time. And so I don't know, just wanted to do something different. But sometimes I wish I'd let him ride four wheelers. I mean, I took him last year, I took both my kids to Daytona to the ATV race, and they both ride dirt bikes. And they're like, Dad, I don't know. I don't know, but I think there's some guys out there I can beat. So, I mean, they both ride well, and they're like, can we go back to Daytona next year? And I mean, I want to run that Pro-Am class. I'm like, I'm not building a four wheeler for you guys to go ride at Daytona in the Pro-Am class. I'm not going to do it. And so they would, well, especially Logan, he would jump in there in a heartbeat.
What's other than the fear? I mean, if he could do it and he wanted to do it, you have enough contacts, you could build him a pretty throwdown machine, I'm sure.
Yeah, I mean, I could, and I mean, the thing is I still know everybody, and I could build something relatively quick, but God, I don't know. It seems like to me that, and I love that stuff, but the thing about it is, unless you can get on the motocross side of it, unless you can be a top two, top three guy, really not got the chance to make a whole lot of money today. I mean, you got Weenan, Hetrick, I don't even know what Bryce is doing, but Janusa, Rastrelli, those guys. I mean, they're racing for fun, and it's a high risk, low reward deal. I mean, if you want to do that, I mean, you gotta love it, because I mean, you're not going to make a lot of money doing it, and you're probably going to spend a whole bunch. So, and the race part's the same way, but at least if you wreck, you usually don't get hurt. You don't have to go to the hospital.
I mean, that's true. I think ATV racing has gotten back, for most people, back to the roots. You're doing it because you love it, not because you're going to make a check.
No, I agree. I mean, and that's kind of where we came through. It's kind of went full circle. When I first started, there were factories, and just as I come in, they went away. Then I raced all those years, and just as right at the end of my career, the factories came back. And then there was factories for a few years, and they went away. So it's went full circle again. And, I mean, I don't know. I like it. It's still a lot of fun. I like to go. I went to 3 races this year and watched. And so I mean, I watched everything on the stuff. I mean, I'm up to date pretty much on what's going on as far as the pro class is. But and it would be fun. It is a lot of traveling. It's a lot of money. And, with my kids, they've never really, I did it because a buddy of mine had a practice track, so I could practice there. And then there was a local motocross track, another place I could practice. There's no motocrosses around me. I mean, it's an hour to High Point, and they don't let ATVs ride up there maybe once or twice a year. So, I mean, we would have to buy some land and build a track. And I mean, it would be a lot. And I'm too competitive to just show up and just go out there and ride, and then my kid would get the whole shot and go about 10 minutes and fade to the back. I wouldn't be real happy about that. So I mean, at least got to be competitive. And if you fade and go to the back because you're not good enough, that's one thing. But if it's just because you're out of shape, that's a whole nother deal. So I don't know.
I was also talking to you about working on the car, and you like to play the boss, or you like to be the boss instead of the guy doing the deal, but you still get in there and turn wrenches when need be, I'm sure.
Oh yeah. I work on the car. I like to say, and even the guys I've got 2 or 3 really good guys that help, and we're all older now. We don't think we are, but we are. But they like to say I do all the dirty work. Logan and I do. We'll race on Saturday night. We'll come home and we'll unload, and we'll tear the cars apart, take the fenders and sides and stuff off of them, all the wheels and tires off of them, put them on dollies. And so we'll come over Sunday morning and we'll spend all day. We'll wash truck, trailer, all the wheels and tires. And sometimes we'll have close to 20 dirty wheels and tires, both cars, clean the air filters, shock wears, all that stuff. And it takes all day Sunday. So that really, and that's a lot of commitment too for a kid like Logan, who's, 18, 19, 20 years old. He's 21 now, but I mean, most kids want to go to the lake and ride jet skis or, play video games or whatever, and go hang out with their friends because it's a Sunday, it's a weekend, to go ride their side by sides or whatever. But I mean, it's a lot of work. So we get everything washed and cleaned up, and then Monday I go to Rocket and pick up anything we tore up or whatever, and then those guys will usually come over they usually come over if we got anything tore up. They'll come over Monday night, and then again Thursday night to finish stuff up, and then we'll race Friday and Saturday night. But once everything's washed and cleaned up, it's not too bad. I mean, that's the dirty work, Even when you race ATVs, washing and cleaning everything, that's the dirty work. So
that's the part I hate, is washing them. I mean, I still hate washing ATVs.
The worst part for me is I'd rather wash any day than mess with these tires. I mean, we got tires. If we buy a brand new tire now, Hoosier, the time I mount it, I groove it, I sipe it, and I buff it. That's an hour every tire. So, and it's crazy. And sometimes we'll do, usually on a normal week, we'll only have to do 2, 3, 4. But I mean, at the beginning of the year, when you got to sit down and you're trying to do 20 of them, I mean, I just hate tires. And then you get them all slayed out and you got them all, what you think's right. And then you go to measure them and none of them's the right damn size. So, I mean, time you start checking stagger, with our cars, we'll run, anywhere from 1/2 inch to 1 inch of stagger in the front. And in the back, we'll run anywhere from, an inch to 4.5 inches in the rear. So then you figure, well, now our stagger's off. I haven't got the right stagger I'm going to need for the feature, so I got to mount and groove another one. It's really hate tires. So, but it's part of it. It's probably one of the most important parts between tires and shocks. I mean, it's the two most important things, really.
Do you still run a large variety of shocks in the car, or because of all the other added devices that you can use, you don't need to run as many?
No, we don't run near as many shocks as we used to. We used to carry a lot of shocks. I mean, a lot of shocks. We carried 30 or 40 shocks. We're down to now where, I have about, each car has 6 shocks on it. So I'll probably have somewhere in the neighborhood of, I'll have the 6 that's on the car when I leave, and I usually have a spare for every corner. And the same thing with Logan. But we don't have to change shocks like that because we got, rebound, we got compression. We can change the springs, and we can change the pucks and the bump stops, and there's a lot of stuff you can do with the shocks. Now, I mean, the old shocks was just an old oil based shock with a spring, and the valving was what it was. But now you can actually adjust the rebound, or you can adjust compression, and you can feel it. I mean, before these old car shocks, when I left ATV racing over here, that was one thing that shocked me was the shocks. And like, these things were junk, and they were just old steel body junk. That's all it was. So, but they were, $100 or $75 for a shock. So, I mean, what do you expect?
Did you instantly go in to wanting to change the shock industry, or did it evolve as you raced cars?
It just evolved as I raced. When I originally came over, I had, I was running a car, and then I had Wayne from PEP, Wayne Meridian. He come in and he built me some shocks. I showed him what we had. Well, he built me stuff. It had adjustable rebound and compression and stuff. And this was before that they were doing any of that stuff. And he flew in from California, and we put him on the car, and Mark Baldwin come over and stayed, and we went and raced that weekend, and we went to some pretty good tracks, and we ran them, and we were really, really good, but they were illegal. You weren't allowed to have adjustable rebound or compression at that point. So they made us take them off, but they weren't. But now you're allowed to have them. Well, and the other thing that we did that was even more illegal is we put the reservoirs in the driver's compartment where I could adjust them during the race. So, and you're still not allowed to do that. But I had them all, like the right rear and stuff. I had it right beside my seat. So under caution or whatever, I could just soften the right rear up if the track got slick or whatever. But yeah, as soon as they saw that, they didn't like that. They made me take them off. So.
But hey, you were ahead of your time, right?
Well, I mean, I knew at some point they were going to go to it. I mean, obviously they haven't let them put them in the driver's compartment, but how the shock technology is going, it's going to keep evolving. I mean, it's just part of it. I mean, every piece on an ATV or every piece on a race car, I mean, at some point it's going to get better. I mean, that's just the way it is. But yeah, we were definitely ahead of our time for sure.
Well, the car industry was so slow to adapt to that kind of technology. It's amazing.
Yeah, it's crazy, and then they put in rules and stuff, and they talk about, they try to keep the cost down, and with this car racing stuff, which is insane because a motor for these things now is $60,000, and yeah, just a motor, and that's no carburetor, no headers, and then you figure in a complete car is going to cost you $65,000-$70,000. I mean, I'm I'm shocked that there's as many people that do it as there is, but I mean, they're on TV almost every night of the week. If you get on Flow Racing or Dirt Vision or whatever, they're on there. They have big 30, 40,000, $50,000 to win races every weekend. So, um, and they have good car counts. They'll have next weekend, I think it's 100,000 to win, and in Ohio at Eldora, and they'll probably have 90 or 100 cars. So it's crazy.
Wow, that is pretty. And how much do you race versus how much he races?
Logan.
Yeah.
This year, Logan actually raced more than I did, which is probably the first time ever. I mean, I've always raced a lot. And then this year I took Friday nights off and just helped him. And, because he wants to race, and he wants to race every night, but I don't, I'm old and wore out. So, I took him just about every Friday night. We looked for tracks and took him, and he runs good. And he wants to run more, and probably at some point we're going to start running a lot more, and it's probably just going to be him. It's just too expensive, and it's too much work to keep both cars going, and you got to have a lot of help. And like the guys that help me, they're all married, they've all got kids, they've all got families, and it's a lot for them. They've got jobs, so they can't just pick up and take off and go all the time like we can. And so yeah, it's a lot of work. It's a lot of commitment, and I don't know. And it's hard to find help. And everybody says, "Oh, I'll go help you." And once they go do it 2 or 3 times, they're like, "I don't do this. This ain't no fun. This is work." Yeah,
Right. Right.
it is. The only time it's fun is when you win. If you don't win, it sucks.
Well,
So
you still got to do all the work, even if you win.
I know, but winning makes up for it. Winning fixes a lot of problems.
It does, but it's still a lot of work. And I think that's the misconception, even in the ATV world. Everybody thinks, oh, you're, this, and you got to go do this, you got to go do that. Yeah, it wasn't like that. It was all work.
Well, I mean, a lot of it was, and when I look back at it, and talk to my kids, I raced here, I raced there, I went there, I done that or whatever, and they think you're traveling all over the world. And back when we done the pace races and the Mickey Thompson races and that kind of stuff, yeah, it was cool going to all the different cities and stuff, but we didn't really do much. I mean, we especially for someone like me that was flying in from the East Coast to the West Coast, and we got there, and then Friday, you go check out the track or whatever and get something to eat Friday night. You race Saturday night, you usually flew home Sunday. So I mean, it wasn't a vacation. I mean, yeah, it was cool flying in and out of San Diego or Anaheim or wherever you were going, but I mean, it's not like you were there for vacation. You didn't have time to do much. Even when we went to Europe for Pont de Vue and that stuff, um, we actually would, one of the years we stayed, an extra week or two. Me and Timmy did, and went and toured some stuff, but um, it was just kind of get in there and do your thing and get out. So, which is
Yeah, I mean, Pont-de-Vue, before one year, I went into Italy and worked with those guys getting the bike set up, but it wasn't, it was all work. And then one year with Sonic afterwards, we went touring motorcycles in the Alps. And yeah, other than that, it was, you fly in, do your thing, fly out.
yeah. I mean, it was cool, and those flights they're terrible. I mean, they take forever. So
Yeah, you're in a plane for 14, 16, 18, you know.
it's
I mean,
awful.
I traveled back from somewhere. I don't remember where it was. I think it was Dubai, and I had to go from there to Speed World in Arizona for a race, and it was 33 hours.
Yeah, we did. Well, we flew to, me and Timmy flew to New Zealand one year and raced down there and came back, and it was a long way. But I can remember when the pace stuff was going on. We drove to California. We raced. I think we raced in, it was either San Diego or Anaheim. It might have been Anaheim. We, as soon as the Anaheim race was over, we jumped on a plane, me and Timmy and Harold Goodman, and we flew to France for the beach race. It was in February, I think. It's in January, February. It was in the winter. So we flew to France for a beach race. And then we rode a Banshee over there. And then we left the beach race and flew all the way back to California. And I had to get in my truck. I had a red truck and trailer. And we had to drive it to Minnesota to race the pace race the next weekend. So, I mean, it was just all over the place. But that's just the way we.
Yeah, you didn't get to see a lot. You didn't get to do a lot, but you went a lot of places.
Yeah, yeah, in a hurry.
Did you get to watch or see much of the Quad Cross of Nations deal at all?
Yeah, I did. I kept up with that pretty good. So the track looked really good. And obviously our guys are really good. I think you could take our fourth, fifth, sixth place guys and probably still maybe win that thing. I mean, we've always had the best riders when it comes to the ATV stuff. I mean, you think about it, you look back when we were doing Ponte Vue. I mean, you had me and Timmy and Harold going over there. You had you guys going over there with Earhart and Eichner and Travis Spader. I mean, I don't think there was anybody over there that could outrun any of the six of us back in that era. But I think I mean, it's crazy. And you know, and how they've put that together. Now this must have been about their fourth trip or something, I'm thinking. I think it was their fourth trip. They've won it all four times, but I think every time they go, they get more organized. They get more figured. This is the second time to this track too. So I think that helped a little bit. They were going back to a place they was a little bit familiar with. So
it's their fifth time and their first time going perfect.
Yeah, first time going perfect. Yeah. So, and I think a little bit of that helps too. I mean, the first time they went was to this track, and then they come back. So I mean, then they're coming back. At least Chad and Joel were familiar with the area, and then you got Mark and those guys. I mean, when you're coming back someplace you've been before, now you know where hotels are, and you know where restaurants are, and it makes it a lot easier. You know what the track's like. So I think that helps a little bit too. But I don't think it matters. We still got the best riders unless they break. They should clearly win it. And every year I say I'm going to go, but I don't. I wish that I would have went this year since they went perfect, but maybe I'll go next year. So
yeah, I was hoping that I could work something out to get over there because I got friends over there in on the British team, and I've met people on the other teams, but Harry Walker, his dad used to ride with the Philip Charles guys or the ATV World guys that rode the Duncan Banshees in Ponte Vue. So Lauren's buddies with his dad, and I've had him over here at the house and everything. And it's, I'd love to go over there and see him ride. And Harry won the British Championship this year.
Yeah, I've seen it. That means we've been doing this shit too long. If the dads we raced with, their kids are now champions, we've been here too long.
Well, where else you going to go, right?
I know. Well, it's the same thing with Joe Ettrick. So what's the difference, Back when I started, Rich was racing or whatever. So his dad.
Yeah, and Joel told me when I first met him, oh, I remember you guys. I was a little kid racing minis when you guys would come to the races. I'm like, really? Wow. I didn't think there was anybody around that was around that back then. And he was just a little bitty guy.
Yeah, I think Joel and Rastrelli, I mean, poor Jeffrey. I mean, he's super good rider, but he's had to race Joel from the time he could walk. And so, I mean, all the way through, they've been the same age same class, So he was around, and but Chad really didn't show up until really I was about done when Chad showed up. I think Chad probably showed up around 2004, 2005, somewhere there. First few times I heard of Chad, but really, I mean,
The first time I remember, I talked to Chad quite a bit, but I was working on Tavis Kane stuff, and we were back. I don't even remember where we were, and Chad come over and asked, "Would you sponsor us? Would you help me?" And I go, "Chad, I can barely help the kid that I'm helping now. I mean, and it's not my call." Um, you just think back on it, and you wish that you'd have latched onto that, but it took him 10 years to stop
yeah.
breaking stuff before he started dominating.
Oh yeah. I mean, he was fast, right? I mean, from the first time I remember him, he was fast. He just crushed everything. I mean, he was a Donnie Banks type rider. I mean, he just break the thing in half. So, and it didn't matter who built the stuff. Didn't matter if it was Baldwin or Wayne or whatever A arms he had or frame. It didn't matter. He just tore it up. So, but he doesn't tear up much anymore. I mean, he's impressive.
Super calculated. The thing that I like the best about watching the Quad Cross of Nations. So you go to a national and you watch Joel or Bryce or Chad. They react much faster and are more aggressive. Here they were calculated, they were smooth, and they would set their passes up so that there was no rubbing, there was no aggression in it. I mean, there was a little bit of aggression, but for the most part, they just methodically set these guys up and passed them.
Yeah. Well, I think they knew. I mean, they know probably from practice and time qualifying and all that stuff or whatever. They're faster than everybody, so just don't do anything stupid, and you'll be fine. Although it's hard to tell someone to do, And I think there's probably when those three guys go together, they're not really racing each other anymore like they are over here. Over here, they're a little bit of a rivalry between them, and over there they're a team. They want to try to win together, and I mean I know that was the same. I mean, me and Timmy, we run each other pretty hard over here, but when we were over there, we tried to be we tried to ride as a team and be respectful and try not to make anybody mad over there, and just have a good time. I mean, there's a lot of cool people over there, and it's interesting to go, and it's cool how they, I mean, the people over there, they kind of respect these guys. I mean, these guys are special over there.
I think that they just love being on the track with them. And some of the guys are just thankful that they get to be there, you know?
Yeah, it's cool when you see that. I mean, because I mean, even if you look at some of the videos, some of the pictures, I mean, some of the riders from the other teams are coming up and wanting their autographs and stuff, and that's pretty cool.
Yeah, I haven't experienced, I think it's because of the conditioning that we have. How many people have you ever been starstruck to meet?
I don't know, not too many. I mean, it just never. I don't know. I mean, I've run into famous people before, but I've just, even when I do see someone that's pretty cool, I'm like, yeah, I'm kind of backwards about that stuff. I just try to give them their space instead of just flocking to them and
Yep.
acting or whatever. But yeah, I don't know. I've kind of been a little bit backward, but some people when they see people like that, they just rush to them, and it's cool. I mean, especially if you're at the racetrack or whatever, and I mean they're signing autographs and stuff. I mean, that's just kind of cool. But and even these guys in this ATV world, they're superstars. But in a normal world, I mean, they're still lucky enough where they can go to a mall or to a movie and no one really hardly knows them when they're back home or whatever. But they're not like say Michael Jordan. I mean, he couldn't go anywhere. I mean, he couldn't go to the movies. I mean, he had to build all that stuff and stay at the house, because he gets swamped. But it's pretty cool.
Yeah, I mean, it's relative. I mean, it's totally relative if when you think about it. I don't. I've just never been in that big of awe as I've gotten older to think that there's anybody really that special. I think we're all just humans trying to do our thing.
Yeah. I mean, that's kind of the way I've been. I mean, yeah, they got a special talent and it's cool. And I like to talk to them, you know. I mean, like when I go to the races, I always go talk to Chad and always go talk to Joel. And there's another kid from back here. I mean, he's a big ATV kid, and he goes and watches all the GNCCs and the motocross stuff. And you know, and he didn't even know I raced. You know, I see him at the dirt car races. You know, and I tell him that I raced foilers. No, you didn't. I said, yeah, I do. He said, I like that Joel Hitt trick, and I'm like, I know Joel. You don't know Joel. I'm like, okay, whatever, you know. So we went to High Point. You know, of course, he was there way before I was, and he went over and asked Joel. Says, you know Shane Hitt? And Joel like, yeah. He's like, I thought he was lying to me. So it's kind of funny, you know. I walked up and Joel's like, some kid over here said, well, ask if I knew you. But yeah, funny.
Did the kid figure out that you were a national champion?
Yeah, when they asked me to go up in the tire and help announce, he's like, why are you going up in the tire? I said, well, I told you I used to race. He says, well, and then he looks me up. He starts looking me up. Hey, man, can I have a jersey? Well, like, I'm out of jerseys, buddy. But
Right.
yeah, I mean, he just, and that's the way. It's been so long since I raced that, you know, a lot of people don't, like when I race dirt cars, a lot of people think this is all I've ever done is race dirt cars. But it's not. I mean, I didn't start this stuff till I was old. So,
How
but
old were how old were you when you stopped racing ATVs?
35, 36, probably somewhere in that area. I think the last year that I really ran would have been 2000. The last year that I ran, was planning on running the full season was 2004. Now I did some TT stuff 2000 up till 2008, I think. 2007, I think was my last year. 2007. So I think 2007. Now I think I raced once or twice after that on a KTM. Just, you know, I went to Ashtabula and run like the pro-am class or something. But as far as the riding the pro class, I don't think I rode the pro class since 07. So I think I was about 30. I was probably 36 years old, somewhere in that area, when I quit. So,
Wow.
but it's crazy. Even from 2004, which I'd ran the whole series from, I think I started in '89 to 2004. So and I don't know that I ever missed maybe one race. I think I only missed one race in all those years. And then you go from the middle of '04 when I got hurt, and I come back and run a motocross race at High Point like 2 years later. It's crazy that you show up and how many people is gone and how many new people there is. And you're like, man, I don't hardly know anybody. And it's only been a couple of years. I mean, the names and the faces, they change quick. I mean, when I go to a race now, I mean, I know the top two or three guys, and that's about it. You know, I mean, I know most of the guys in the pro class. I know their names and their faces because I watch it. But you know, I don't know if they know me. You know, and I don't go over and, you know, try to tell them, you know, I used to race or whatever. You know, if I see them, I say hey or whatever. But I mean, obviously, I talk to Chad and Joel and Bryce because he's under the Baldwin tent. And when I go, I'm you know, obviously I hang out at Mark's because we're still really good friends. So, but
I got to go to Briarcliff last year, and one of the first people I ran into was Mark, and it was so good because he was busy, but he just took so much time to talk, and you know, it was just like we had been at the Nationals together, you know, yesterday.
yeah.
No time, and I probably hadn't seen Mark in 20 years.
One thing about Mark's never changed, and he's always been like that. He's always busy. He's nonstop. He's always doing something. But you know, I met Mark when I first started, and him and Timmy, and we become good friends, and we still talk on the phone. If I need anything, I still call him, and you know, just like when we went out there to Wes's deal last year in Vegas, you know, Mark called up and said, "You going to go to that thing?" And I'm like, "I don't know. Are you going?" And Mark's like, "I'm going if you're going." So I called out and got a room, and we flew out together, stayed at the hotel together, and we went to SEMA and then went to the ATV thing. And then me and Mark went up to Corey's up to Utah and went and rode side by sides with Binky, and then came back. But it's crazy. Some of those people, I mean, like Mark, I mean, we were young when we met. We were probably I mean, I was probably 17, 18 years old. Mark's a couple years older than I am, but we almost grew up together, 4 hours apart. Because back in the day when we raced, me and Timmy ran head to head. And Timmy really, back in the day, I mean, there was a bunch of TT tracks up in the Ohio. There was a place called Deerfield, and there was Ashtabula, and there was one at New Philadelphia, and all that stuff was just a couple hours for me, and it was in between us, really. Well, Ashtabula was in Timmy's backyard, but so I mean, we raced against each other at all the TTs, and then we had to race each other on all the motocrosses. So we raced each other a lot. So we just all become good friends.
Well, I remember I was working with Eichner when we were back at the Nationals, and that's Mark and I were just green kids.
Yeah.
And I say it like that because I mean, I was just, granted, I'd been working on ATVs for quite a while. I mean, I was born into it, but going to the Nationals, no, I was still relatively fresh and not, hadn't done that many. And Mark came in a little after me, and so we were super young at the same time. And he stayed back doing the Nationals, and obviously we did other stuff. But it's amazing when we look in the mirror now and we're both wearing glasses and got gray hair.
I know, because I mean, this goes clean back before Mark, even before Baldwin Motorsports. I mean, when Timmy and them were riding for Fisher Cycles out of Ashtabula, when we were all kids. And then, in 1994, Mark started Baldwin Motorsports, and what he's done and what he's growing, and how he's run that business. And thank God Sherry come along and helped him out, because Mark would never be where he's at without her. But I don't know. I mean, Mark really was a guy that could do anything, but just needed a little bit of push sometimes to get him going. And, I mean, he was in college when we were friends, and was, I don't know, probably wasn't far from graduating. I talked him into quitting and starting Baldwin Motorsports. He actually started Baldwin Motorsports from my mom and dad's living room. I talked him into quitting college. I said, "Hey, he was helping me race my race car." And I said, he's like, "Shane, I got to go to class." I'm like, "No, you can miss the first day." And here comes the next day. I'm like, "Mark, you don't need to go. No one does anything on the second day either." And finally I said, "Why don't you just quit? Start Baldwin Motorsports. I mean, it's what you're going to do anyway. I mean, you can go to school for the next 3 or 4 years and get you an engineering degree or whatever you want, but you're still going to work on four-wheelers." So he did. He got on the telephone, called up school, dropped out, started Baldwin Motorsports. And look where he's at today. I mean, I guess he's the head of that whole Motocross the Nations thing or whatever for the ATVs, and does a good job. Anything Mark does, he's going to do a good job at. So
him and Harv Whipple, I think, do a stellar job of it. I really do. I mean, I've got to do a lot of great things and a lot of cool stuff, but I representing your country, like getting to represent America, the United States at Rendezvous. I mean, it's almost a highlight going to Dakar and being from the States and doing things like that. That getting to go to the Quad Cross of Nations and be one of the guys on the team, that's probably the ultimate portion of your resume that you could ever put on there.
Yeah, I mean, I want to go watch, and I don't even know why I didn't go this year, because it kind of fell right into the schedule. But I've always wanted to go, and I really want to go, especially because Mark's involved in it, and that way at least I know somebody. I mean, someone ever else takes it over and I don't know anybody, then it's not the same for me. But I'd like to go and watch them, and because it's interesting, and I just like that stuff. It's crazy. I wish I could still ride, but and that's the thing, when you're racing, you just kind of, you live in that moment, and you don't have time to sit back and really take it all in. And someday, I mean, I would say Chad's probably starting to take it all in now, but I mean, like Bryce and Joel and those guys, I mean, they're racing, and it's just, as soon as they're done, they're off to do this and they're off to do that. They got to go practice. They got to go do this, whatever. And they don't really have time to stop back and look at the big picture of what they've done. And that they'll be remembered for the rest of their life for that stuff. And it's pretty cool.
Well, when you were racing and you won a race, the next morning, what were you doing?
We were off to do something else. You know,
You were
it was,
prepping for the next race.
yeah, I mean, you didn't have time. I mean, you know, you didn't have time for that stuff to even set in. I mean, the next morning we're packed up, moving on someplace else. You know, I mean, really the only like the cool races. I mean, was lucky enough to win some pretty cool stuff. We won Pont de Vue one year, so I was lucky enough to win that, and then that had a little bit of time to sink in because that's the year that we took. I think me and Timmy took some time and went and toured. You know, went through Switzerland and some of the other stuff, the Alps and a bunch of stuff while we were over there. Went to England and some stuff, and then we won the Baja 1000 one year. And then of course I won the national championship, and it's the end of the year. So you got a little bit of time after that to kind of let stuff sink in. But most of the time when you win a race, I mean, you're off to the next one. So you don't have time for that stuff, and or you're off to practice or you're off to do something. So, but I don't know. It's crazy. It's crazy life.
Yeah, I don't know. I don't know if Eichner and I ever really took the time to acknowledge anything.
Yeah.
Because when we were racing works, we were racing score and best in the desert. And then Pont de Vue would show up, and then this other event would come along, and it just until we weren't going, we were going. I mean, it was wide open, and then it was wide open, and then shut the gas off, and oops, we're done.
Well, you look at Baldwin. I mean, like Mark. I mean, he's been wide open since I've known him, and he never shuts it off. You know, I mean, it was up to the last second when we went out there last year. You know, because Wes Miller, we had our airline tickets and stuff, and then that race with Wes was supposed to be in conjunction with the works or something. Something fell through, whatever. I don't know what happened, but anyway, they moved the race, and so Mark calls me up and says, "Shane, I'm not going. They canceled the race, and I got too much work to do." And I'm like, Mark, I already bought plane tickets and I got tickets for the Seamless show and stuff. I said, I'm going to go. Whether they race or they don't race. And so Mark's on the fence, and of course, I got old Wes, and Wes is like, we're just going to move to a different place, but that race is happening. I called Mark. I said, we're going. And we had to leave like 4 or 5 o'clock in the morning. So Mark's like, I didn't even know if Mark went. You know, I ended up running. I can't remember. I think he sent me a text like 4 or 5 o'clock in the morning and said, I'm getting on the plane in Cleveland or something. I thought, well, I guess he's still going. So as soon as that race is over, I mean, as soon as we were done, you know, Mark flies back and he's working on stuff to go do something else. I mean, a guy ever takes a break. So, I mean, every now and then
I've gotten to speak to Michael Bird. You know, Michael will open up a little bit at the end of the year. Like after this, Mark will take a little bit of a breather. I mean, still working, but not at the same fever pitch. And we'll relax just a little bit because they have to start building new machines, you know, almost immediately because the supply to get parts takes longer. You know, nothing's the same anymore.
No, it's crazy. And the work is, and it takes longer to put these 4 strokes together than it did 2-stroke. I mean, back in the day, I mean, you could throw these things together pretty quick. You know, a 250R. The 4 strokes take a little bit longer, a little more parts involved, but a little bit more work on the motors and stuff. But and they go a lot. They're doing transmissions and stuff where we didn't have to do all that stuff. So
I think that the chassis are more involved now. I mean, yes and no. It's a hard one, but when you're building some of this stuff nowadays, it does take longer. I don't know why. I figured, you know, I've been doing it long enough. It should be faster, right?
yeah,
it seems like it takes longer.
yeah, it does. You know, and Mark does a lot. I mean, I don't know how many bikes he builds a year, but I mean, the whole world has changed. The whole racing thing has changed because people call up now, and Daryl Rath has told me the same thing. People, they just want to call up where before we call up, we order Nerf bars or we order, you know, a swing arm or some A arms. People now, they call up and they say, I want you to build the whole bike. and then I'll come
Yep.
pick it up. Well, that takes time, for someone like, Mark or Daryl Rath or someone, and you give them a price, and you just, and I don't know what kind of prices they're paying, but I mean, whatever you price it at, they're like, okay, we'll just build it and we'll come get it. And they're like, well, that was part of the fun, really, for me. I mean, I liked tinkering with that stuff. I liked putting it together. And I don't know. I mean, I guess some people just don't.
I think it takes away from the knowledge level of the riders because they don't know how it goes together. So they don't really understand how it works.
No, I agree 100%. I mean, the more you work on it, the more you know about it. And so, but I mean, I kind of enjoyed working on it. I mean, I would go in my garage and put the stuff together, and I'd have to call people and say, "Hey, how's this go?" Or why is it like this? Or or they show up and look at my bike and say, "Well, that's wrong. You put that thing together wrong," or whatever. Or I would put the thing together and think I had it perfect, and show up at the race and walk over there and have this pro circuit quick adjust clutch lever or something on my four-wheeler and think I got the best one out here. No one else got one of these, and walk over there and look, and Baldwin's already got one. I'm like, how did he get one? So, but it was kind of fun, you to try every year. You try to build it better than the last. So
right.
It was, I just like that stuff. I still like that stuff. I still like tinkering, like with my race cars. I like messing with that stuff. It's just, I don't play video games. So I don't go out to the bar and get drunk. So, I mean, I just go to the garage and tinker with stuff. So.
And did it, I still doing what I do. I still building ATVs. I love it so much that my Saturdays and Sundays are building more ATVs.
Yeah.
Not, I try to stay away from the honeydews, but that doesn't happen. You still got to take care of those.
But at this point, we're almost too old to do anything else. So.
Right. Come on now. We're not that old. We're not old yet. Come on. I don't see much gray hair on your head. So
don't look, it's here. So
Jeremy Osborne, the owner of Briarcliff.
Yep, I know Jeremy.
Is thinking about having a reunion motocross race.
Well, that sounds kind of interesting.
Well, yeah, because he's probably going to be calling you and going, "Hey, Shane, are you up for coming out?"
Well, yeah, of course.
Well, that's awesome. I had mentioned that we have Eichner sold his 2003 Lobo to one of our friends and a friend of his as well, and we have it. So I told Jeremy we could prep that and Doug could come and ride that, and he was like, "Oh, that would be awesome." And I was like, "Oh, we'll have to ask Doug if that's going to happen."
Well, Doug ain't got nothing else to do, so I'll go. I don't care. And I mean, probably Astiville, they just had that 50th anniversary 4 years ago, so it's going to be coming up 55th or whatever. So I still got my 250R. I don't think it's been started since then, but I figure I'm probably going to go back and do that again. And my buddy Binky down there, have you ever talked to Binky that's got all the ATVs down there?
No, I mean,
seen his place. His place is insane. So he's down there. I went down there last week. I guess it was a couple weeks ago. I went down there. Me and Jeremiah did, and he's building a straight line rhythm. So we're gonna try. He's gonna try to have a straight line rhythm race. So
my son and I were trying to figure out how we could promote that.
So yeah, it's pretty good. You probably ought to get him to come on the show. I mean, this guy's he's a cool dude.
I don't know how to get a hold of him, and I've never met him.
Yeah.
And yeah, I got something for you when we're done. I'll tell you about it. But there's things in the works that I think you'll be interested in.
Yeah. Well, I'm in.
I can't openly talk about, but that's neither here nor there. Everybody's going to be pissed now when this portion of the thing airs. Well, what's he talking about?
You can cut this out.
But hey, Shane, as always, brother, I really enjoy having you on. And I know we didn't talk a lot of ATVs, but you have a fan base and they love to hear what you're doing. And being that we're a motorsports podcast, talking about your cars, to me, is just as important as talking about the ATVs, because I like to hear you learn so much about the ATV and then you roll it into the cars. Yes, they're different, but it did teach you something.
Oh, it taught me a lot. I mean, people ask me all the time that, when I started racing cars, they said, "What's the difference? What do you like better?" And I tell them, I like the 4-wheeler stuff better. It was better. I mean, the car thing would just go around in a circle. It's kind of dumb, but it is kind of fun. But the ATV stuff, I definitely like better. But what I learned from there, I brought over, and I tell them, I say, really, to be good at the car stuff, it's no different than trying to be good at the ATV stuff. When I raced ATVs, I would spend all this time practicing. Every day you go to a practice track and you practice and you put in the time. And to be good in a car, you got to be at the shop every night working on the car. It's no different. It's the same amount of time. It's like anything. You get out of what you put in it. So I try to put in the work. And I did with the ATV stuff. I mean, I tried to put in the work. Sometimes it didn't look like I did, but I tried. And with my cars the same way. I mean, I work as much as I can, and it seems like I never, even when I raced ATVs, I never pulled on the racetrack where I thought I was going to win. Even when I was winning all those TTs, I can't remember ever pulling out there and saying, "Well, this is going to be easy," because it never was easy. And then the other thing is, I always feel like maybe I need to make one more change, or did I get this bolt tight, or did I get that bolt tight, or whatever. I mean, it's just, my mind never really stops. But I guess that's just how I'm wired. I guess I'm different than most people, but it just, I don't know.
I think that thought process is, for all of us that do it, that's the process. Because if you're the mechanic, you're can we change the setup to do it this? Is it going to work a little better? Did we tighten that rear end when we put it on? Or we made that change? Did we finish tightening that shock? It's a universal. If you care about it and you're passionate about it, your mind's doing that.
Yeah, it's crazy, because I mean, and to me, it's always when we're loading up to leave, I'm like, if I just had one more day, I'd be ready. We can get rained out for the weekend, and I'll come back and I'll unload the car and I'll work on it all week long. And people are like, "What are you doing?" Most guys don't even unload their cars, and I've got mine. I've worked on it all week long, and we didn't even race the weekend before. We rained out, and I'm like, well, I think there's something else I want to try. So it is what it is. And you'll never know if you don't try. But the thing with the car racing that's different than the ATVs, if I wanted to try a different shock or a different swing arm, different A-arms, we could bolt that stuff on and go try it. We can't with a car. You just don't. The only time you can try it's the racetrack. So yeah, I mean, it's tough to make a change.
I get it, brother. But Shane, as always, brother, thank you so much for coming on. And if you got anything that you want to share with us, or anything coming up that you need us to know about, make sure you send it to us so that we can get it out there for everybody to see. You're still have a great fan following, and you're still well known in the ATV world. So don't hide it from us, man. Get us the information so that we can promote it for you, and we'll be more than glad to.
All right. I appreciate it, Lenny.
The team here at ATV-TALK would love your feedback. Please email us at hello@atvtalkpodcast.com. Thank you for listening. We hope you enjoyed this episode. If you did, don't forget to share us with your family and friends. The podcast is available on all streaming platforms, and you can find us on social media as ATV-TALK Podcast. We're on Instagram, Facebook, TikTok, YouTube, Rumble, and Twitter.